They had no clue what I'd been tracking for years. But come morning, they'd know. My name is Paul Foster. I'm 24 years old. I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and as of this morning, I'm done being the family mule. It started with a text from my old man, the kind that hits your chest before your eyes even register the words. Sold your guitar amp. Colleen needs a new laptop. Be grateful we put a roof over your head. I blinked at the screen. That amp wasn't just an amp. It was my baby. A 78 Fender Twin Reverb, bought off a retired bluesman who made me promise I'd never sell it unless I was starving. I worked night shifts for that thing, played countless gigs, and now it was gone, like trash he cleared off the porch. Before I could respond, another text came in. Also, you're paying her tuition, $500, due by Thursday. No hello. No asking, just a demand. I stared at it for a full minute, then typed back 2 words, ain't happening. 2 seconds later, his reply landed, then leave. That was it. No discussion, no bluffing either. I knew him, he meant it. By 8 p.m., I had packed everything I owned into my '04 Civic. The rest of my life, posters, books, and busted pedals fit into 3 garbage bags. Before I left, I stopped at the kitchen table and dropped a folder. Nothing dramatic, just a plain manila folder with one note on top. The truth, no more. Inside was 6 years' worth of records, bank transfers, PayPal screenshots, even a printed out Venmo history. Every favor they swore they'd pay back. Every time I covered a bill they forgot to mention. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about the years, the sacrifices, the silence. As I shut the front door behind me, I didn't feel angry. Not really. I felt free, like I was finally stepping into a life that didn't belong to them. I drove aimlessly for a while, watching the lights smear past the windshield. Thought about calling my buddy Miles. Didn't. Just drove. Somewhere around midnight, I parked at a gas station and slept with the seat reclined and my jacket over my face. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just replayed that last text, then leave. And I had. By morning, they'd open that folder, and for the first time in their lives, they'd see everything. Every lie, every theft, every time they called it help while stealing from me in plain sight. The kicker? Colleen wasn't just the spoiled favorite. She was a victim too. She just didn't know it yet. Back then, I was a senior at Millersville University. Took me 6 years to get there, bouncing between full-time work and night classes. I poured concrete all day with a crew out of York, then stocked shelves at the giant grocery store 5 nights a week. I slept maybe 4 hours a night and lived off gas station coffee and whatever leftovers I could sneak from home without raising suspicion. My folks said staying at home would help me save money. I believed that for a while. But whenever I checked the joint savings account my dad insisted we open, the numbers never added up. It was supposed to be for my tuition. I watched it shrink while they claimed times were tight. I knew the pattern. The money would disappear every few weeks. $100 here, $500 there. Always followed by new shoes for Colleen or some unexpected expense. They never asked. They just assumed. Colleen was 18, technically an adult, but still acting 12. She had flunked out of Harrisburg Area Community College the year before, then tried again at Reading and bombed out there too. My parents always found a way to excuse it. She's just figuring herself out. She's under so much pressure. She'll get there eventually. Meanwhile, I was shoveling concrete in 90-degree heat and getting mocked for not doing real college like she had. Never mind, I was actually passing my classes and working myself into the ground to pay for them. The final straw wasn't even the tuition demand. It was the amp. That Fender wasn't just gear. It was a piece of me. I'd had it since I was 17. Played open mics every weekend to earn half of it, then worked a landscaping job the whole summer to get the rest. It was scratched to hell and smelled like spilled beer, but it had soul. I came home from work one Friday and saw the amp was gone. Just gone. In its place on the floor, a folded-up receipt from Best Buy and an empty MacBook box. Colleen was upstairs, blasting TikToks from her new laptop like she'd won the lottery. I asked Dad where my amp was. He barely looked up from his recliner. Sold it. We needed to make a tech investment. Colleen's got school coming up. My voice cracked when I asked, "You sold it without even telling me?" He just shrugged. "You live in this house. You contribute to this house. That amp was under this roof, so technically..." I didn't even hear the rest. Technically, that word haunted me. I should have seen it sooner. This wasn't new. This was years in the making. There was the time I paid off the $1,200 electric bill in sophomore year so the heat didn't get shut off. The borrowed money for Colleen's car repairs that I never saw again, and the gas tank I filled every week for Mom, who swore she'd Venmo me next time. She never did. All in all, I'd run the numbers. Nearly 15 grand gone since I turned 18. And that's not counting what they owed in promises. I wasn't mad about the money, not really. I was mad about the rewriting of history. Every time I pitched in, they twisted it, made it sound like they were the ones doing me a favor. "You should be grateful," Dad once said. "We let you stay here. We didn't charge you rent." But I had paid rent. I paid it in silence, in labor, in sacrifice. I paid it every time they made me feel like an outsider in my own family. The amp was the spark, but the fire had been building for years. This time, though, I wasn't going to let it slide. This time, I wasn't going to be their quiet little savings account in work boots. This time, they were going to see the truth, down to the last damn penny. 2 days after I left, I showed up to my warehouse job looking like I'd been hit by a truck, because I had, emotionally at least. Slept in my car, washed up at a Sheetz bathroom, and lived off stale peanut butter crackers I found under my front seat. I clocked in late. Again. Richard, my boss, just looked at me over his coffee mug and said, "Everything good at home?" I stared at the loading dock for a long second, then muttered, "Not really." That was all I said, but something in the way he looked at me told me he got it. He'd always been quiet, old school, not the type to get involved. But that day, after our shift, he patted me on the shoulder and said, "If you need a place to land, I know someone." I nodded, thanked him, and said I'd figure it out. I didn't. By sundown, I was back in my Civic, trying to remember the last real meal I had. It was Tuesday. I remembered because Miles always kept his garage open late on Tuesdays. Miles had been my best friend since 6th grade. We used to trade snacks at lunch, then guitars in high school, then job leads when the real world kicked in. He owned a little auto shop on the edge of town and lived in the apartment above it. Nothing fancy, but it was his. I drove straight there. He opened the door before I even knocked. He took one look at me, bags under my eyes, hair all over the place, duffel bag on my shoulder, and didn't ask a single question. "Spare room's yours," he said. Just like that, I almost lost it right there in his doorway. Inside, he cracked 2 beers, handed me one, and sat down on the ripped couch. The place smelled like motor oil and leftover pizza. Felt more like home than anywhere I'd been in years. I told him everything. The amp, the texts, the then leave ultimatum, how they sold my stuff without asking, how they expected me to cover Colleen's tuition like it was just another chore on the fridge. I laughed bitterly. "She can't even spell tuition." Miles didn't laugh. He just shook his head. "Man, that's not a family. That's a subscription service." I snorted. "Except I never signed up." He took a swig of beer and leaned forward. "You said they've been taking money for years?" I nodded. "Yeah, since I was 18. Started with a car payment, then some loan for Colleen's community college classes, then the electric bill. Always something." "You got records?" I paused. "Yeah, kinda." He raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "I've got screenshots, Venmo history, old bank statements, some printed receipts. I kept stuff just in case." Miles smiled. Not a nice smile. A calculated one. "Good. Then we're going to hit them where it hurts." "What, you want me to sue my family?" He shook his head. "Not yet, but you're going to show them the truth. Every cent, every lie, every time they made you feel crazy for asking where your money went." I let out a shaky breath. "I don't know, man." "Paul," he said, looking me dead in the eye, "they already kicked you out. What more can they take?" He had a point. I'd lost my amp, my savings, my bed, but I still had the receipts, every line item, every transfer, every fake promise disguised as love. And with Miles by my side, I was done being their secret donor. I was about to become their biggest regret. Miles didn't waste time. Next morning, he handed me coffee and a yellow notepad. "We're building a case. Start listing everything." It felt weird, writing it all down. But once I started, it poured out. Every time they borrowed money. Every time they said, "We'll pay you back, promise." Every time I got stiffed. By noon, I'd scribbled out a 6-year timeline in angry, uneven handwriting. That night, I drove back to the old house, not to talk, just to retrieve my stash. See, I never trusted them with my documents. Too many things had gone missing in that house. So about a year ago, I started keeping all my records in an old green ammo box I hid behind the drywall in the garage. Left wall, behind the rake hooks. No one ever noticed. I parked down the block, waited for the porch light to go dark, then snuck in through the side gate. Inside the garage, it was freezing. I pulled back the drywall panel, and there it was, right where I left it, duct taped shut, dusty, untouched. Inside, printed bank slips showing $3,200 in utility and rent payments, Venmo screenshots totaling $8,700, 2 emails from Mom asking for a little help this month that turned into hundreds, a printed invoice from my guitar shop showing the amp's value, $1,200, and then something I didn't expect, a letter, one I forgot I had. It was from Grandpa's attorney, dated 5 years ago. Mentioned a trust fund he set up for me and Colleen before he passed. Thing is, I'd asked my parents about that trust fund when I turned 18. They said it took a hit in the market, said there was nothing left. But the letter? It didn't say anything about it being gone. It said the fund would be held until we turned 21, unless otherwise withdrawn by the named trustees, which were my parents. My hands started to shake. I grabbed everything, shoved it into my backpack, and got the hell out of there. Back at Miles's, I stayed up all night typing, made a clean, bulletproof report. I labeled each transaction, added dates, totals, descriptions, every withdrawal, every request, every lie. The final tally, $3,200 in bills, $8,700 borrowed cash, $1,200 for the amp, $14,400 from the trust fund, if my math was right. Total owed to Paul Foster, $27,500. I titled the last page Summary of Financial Damages, slapped the total at the bottom, and added one line, Pay in full or see you in court. Next day, I printed the whole thing at the UPS store down the street, 62 pages in full color, hole punched and stapled. I slid it into a fresh folder, same kind I left on the kitchen table that night I left. On the cover, I just wrote, For Frank and Karen Foster, from your son who kept the receipts. We drove back to the house that night. Miles waited in the car, engine running. I walked up to the porch and left the folder on the same spot where Dad used to set the mail. No knock, no message, just walked away. By morning, my phone lit up like Vegas. 32 missed calls, 47 unread texts. The first was from Dad. What the hell is this? Then Mom, Paul, we need to talk. Call us. Now. Then Colleen, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know. They had read it, and they finally understood. I wasn't bluffing. I was done. By 6:30 the next morning, my phone was a war zone. 32 missed calls, 47 unread messages, all from the people who used to ignore my existence unless they needed a bank transfer. Mom led with guilt. Paul, honey, we didn't mean for any of this to happen. Let's talk. Please. We love you. This is all a big misunderstanding. Dad came next. No sweetness in his tone. You're making a mistake, son. Take that garbage out of the folder and come home before this gets worse. You think you're so smart now, trying to tear your family apart over money? Then Colleen. Her messages were scattered, like she didn't know which side to take. Paul, what is all this? Is that really how much they took from you? I didn't know about any of it, I swear. But the one I didn't expect was from Grandma Louise. A voicemail. I hadn't heard her voice in months. We weren't exactly close, mostly polite chats at holidays, but she always looked at me different, like she actually saw me. Paul, she said, her voice low but steady, we're flying in tomorrow. Do not speak to your parents until we talk. Love you, sweetheart. That stopped me cold. I was sitting at Miles's kitchen table, toast untouched, phone buzzing every few seconds. He was sipping black coffee and scrolling through the morning news like it was any other Wednesday. I hit play again. Miles looked up. Is that Grandma Louise? She's flying in? He let out a low whistle. Damn, sounds like she's done with their BS. I didn't reply. I was too stunned. Grandma never got involved in drama. She was old school, believed family problems stayed in the family. So if she was flying in, something was about to blow. Mid-morning, I got another call, this time from Richard, my boss at the warehouse. You good, Paul? He asked, voice rough but kind. You don't usually miss your shifts. Sorry, I mumbled. Stuff blew up at home. He paused. You want more hours this week? We could use you. I'll front you in advance if you need it. That nearly broke me. I cleared my throat. No, I'm okay. Just figuring things out. You're not alone, man, he said. Whatever's going on, you'll land on your feet. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time. That morning was a turning point, not because my parents were scrambling or because my phone wouldn't shut up, but because I finally saw who actually had my back. Miles, who gave me a roof without question. Grandma, who was hopping on a plane. Richard, who offered an advance without knowing the whole story. People who didn't need an explanation to believe I deserved better. Meanwhile, my parents were spinning. My mom tried the "we didn't mean it" approach. My dad tried intimidation. Colleen was panicking, but none of them apologized. Not once did they say, "We're sorry." Just desperation, damage control, and fear, because now the truth was out. That folder didn't just outline what they took from me. It showed them I had kept receipts. It showed them I wasn't the fool they thought I was. And the worst part? They weren't the only ones reading it. Grandma was on her way, and from the sound of her voice, she was ready to burn the whole house down if she had to. Grandma Louise landed that Thursday. She didn't call first. She just showed up at Miles's place wearing her tan trench coat and that same sharp stare she used to keep my cousins in line during Thanksgiving dinner. I opened the door, unsure of what to expect. She looked me up and down, then pulled me into a hug so tight it caught me off guard. She whispered, "I had no idea, Paul. Not a damn clue." Behind her stood Aunt Linda, holding a manila envelope. "May we come in?" Grandma asked, like she wasn't already halfway inside. They sat at Miles's kitchen table, the same table where I'd sorted receipts and calculated betrayal like math homework. Linda slid the envelope across the table. "This is from Grandpa's estate lawyer." I opened it slowly, my hands suddenly cold. Inside were official-looking documents, trust disbursement records, fund statements, bank transactions. It didn't take long to see the headline. Colleen's tuition had been paid, weeks ago, from the trust fund. I looked up. "So I was never supposed to cover it?" Linda shook her head, jaw tight. "Frank used your share, said you were too scattered to handle your own finances. He rerouted the payments to cover Colleen's enrollment and a few other things." I flipped through the rest of the pages. Car payments, credit card bills, even a damn cruise deposit. "That money was mine," I said, my voice low. "It was," Grandma said, "and now we fix this." I swallowed hard, my throat burning. "They've been draining it since I was 21? She nodded. "And lying about it. Told me it was gone in the market crash, but that was never true. Your grandfather left instructions, 50% to you, 50 to Colleen. That was his final wish." I leaned back in the chair, brain spinning. "So all this time I thought I was broke, working double shifts, selling my stuff just to keep up." "You were," Linda said, "because they let you." That's when the knock came. Colleen. She stood there with puffy eyes and a nervous half smile. In her hand was a white envelope. "I didn't know, Paul," she said before I could speak. "About the trust, the AMP, any of it." I didn't move. I just stared at her. She swallowed. I thought you were just being dramatic, but then I saw what you left." She held up the envelope. "It's $800 from savings and some shifts at the cafe. I know it's not much, but it's what I have." I took it slowly. "What about the laptop?" Her eyes dropped. "Can't return it." "But if I could," she trailed off, unsure. Then she looked me in the eye. "I'm sorry." I believed her. Not because I wanted to, but because she looked like someone who just realized her entire childhood was a script someone else wrote. A golden child who never knew her spotlight came at someone else's expense. Miles stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching everything. He didn't say a word, neither did Grandma, but I could see the fire in her eyes growing. Colleen took a shaky breath. "I'm not okay with what they did. To you, to me, any of it." I nodded. "Good, because it's not over yet." She sat down at the table next to Aunt Linda, and for the first time since this whole thing started, it didn't feel like me against the world. It felt like the truth was finally being heard. And Colleen, well, maybe she wasn't the enemy after all. Maybe she was just another casualty of the same lies. They came in hot. I was eating dinner on Miles's couch, burritos, nothing fancy, when the front door rattled like someone was trying to yank it off the hinges. Miles looked at me, then out the window. "Your folks," he muttered. "Of course." I stood up and opened the door just enough to see them on the porch. My dad was red-faced and breathing hard. My mom clutched her purse like she was holding on to her last ounce of control. And Colleen, to my surprise, was standing a few feet back, arms crossed, clearly not thrilled to be there. "We need to talk," Dad barked. I didn't flinch. "You're not welcome here." "You're our son," Mom cried. "You don't just get to shut us out." Miles stepped up behind me, calm, solid. "You were warned. This is trespassing. You stay out of this," Dad snapped. "Not a chance," Miles replied. Then he pulled out his phone. "Want me to call the cops, or are you going to get in your car?" That's when Aunt Linda's Subaru pulled up to the curb. She stepped out, holding a stack of documents and wearing a look I hadn't seen on her since she grounded me for sneaking a beer at a 4th of July barbecue, furious but composed. "Frank," "Karen," she said, walking up the steps. "Go home. You've done enough." "You're siding with him now?" Dad scoffed. "I'm siding with the truth," she said, "and so is the law." He opened his mouth again, but before he could speak, a silver sedan pulled into the driveway. A man in a blazer stepped out holding a slim cardboard box. "Delivery for Paul Foster," he said, looking around. I took the box. Inside, a stamped envelope from the county courthouse. "Emergency hearing," Linda said before I could ask. "Grandma filed a motion. She's having you removed as trustee." Dad turned pale. "She can't do that." "She can and she did," Linda snapped. "And she's petitioning the court to pursue restitution for every cent misused, which, as of now, looks to be over $27,000. My mother gasped like someone had hit her. Colleen, still on the edge of the porch, finally spoke. "You told me Paul was bitter, that he was exaggerating." She turned to them slowly. "You lied to me." "Sweetheart, we were just trying to—" Mom started. "To what?" Colleen cut in. "To keep the car? The credit cards? To make me believe I was getting help from Grandpa when it was really stolen from Paul?" She looked at me. "They always said you were the problem." I raised my eyebrows. She added, quietly, "I think they were scared of you figuring it all out." There was a long pause, no shouting, just silence. Then 2 squad cars rolled up. Miles must have called them after all. An officer stepped out, calm but firm. "We've had a report of trespassing and harassment. We're going to ask everyone not residing here to leave the property immediately." My parents hesitated, stunned. "You can leave now," I said, "or they can escort you." Dad looked like he might argue, then thought better of it. They left without another word. The porch light flickered on as the squad car pulled away. The night suddenly felt still. Cold, but still. Inside, I sat down with the envelope, opened it, read through every word. My name was on every page. As a claimant, a witness, and a plaintiff. This time, it wasn't just my word against theirs. It was official, and it was just the beginning. 2 weeks after the court papers were filed, Grandma Louise handed me a key. We were sitting in a quiet corner of a diner off Route 30. She pushed a small metal key across the table like it was a peace offering. "It's yours," she said. "Grandpa bought it years ago, hoping one of you grandkids would want it someday." I turned it over in my hand. "What is it?" "A little house," she said. "Fixer-upper. Needs work, but the bones are good. Just outside Quarryville." I blinked. "Wait, you're giving me a house?" She smiled. "He always said you were the builder in the family." Looks like he was right. It didn't feel real until I pulled up the gravel driveway later that week. The place was small, just 1 story, sagging porch, chipped white siding, but it had potential. It felt like possibility. I spent the first few days scrubbing walls, ripping out stained carpet, and hauling out the trash left behind by the last tenants. Miles came by with tools and cold beer. Colleen showed up once with a borrowed shop vac and a bag of fast food. "I heard this is what adults do," she said, setting the food down. "Eat fries on floors that don't have baseboards." We sat in the middle of the empty living room and ate in silence. Then she looked around and said, "I like it. It's honest." She'd started community college again, this time for early childhood education. Said she wanted to work with kids, help them feel seen. "This is the first thing I chose for myself," she told me one night as we painted the kitchen. Not Mom, not Dad, just me. We weren't best friends. Not yet, but we were getting there. No more fake smiles, no more pretending everything was fine, just the truth. Finally. A couple weeks later, I landed a full-time job with a home renovation company out of York. The boss liked that I already knew how to handle myself on a job site and didn't flinch at hard work. By the second week, he bumped me up to lead apprentice. "This kid doesn't complain," he told the team. "He just gets it done." And that was me now, the guy who got it done. Not the guy who handed out money while being told he was selfish, Not the guy who stayed quiet while his life was picked apart by the people closest to him. I was building again, for real this time. One Saturday afternoon, Miles hosted a small backyard barbecue at the new place. Fold-out chairs, paper plates, one of those inflatable coolers shaped like a football. Aunt Linda brought potato salad and a new drill set. Grandma claimed her spot under the pop-up canopy like a queen holding court. Colleen helped with the grill, joking that the smoke made her smell more like us poor folks now. We all laughed. At one point, I looked around at the house behind me, at the people eating and talking and not asking me for anything. No drama, no lies, just people who respected me. I wasn't the screw-up. I wasn't the bitter son. I wasn't the invisible one. I was the anchor now. And I realized something in that moment. They had spent years calling me the problem. But here I was, owning a home, holding a job, fixing what they broke. Brick by brick, piece by piece. Turns out when you take your power back, you don't just survive. You build. I turned 25 on a quiet Sunday, the kind of day where the sun feels a little warmer and nobody's in a rush. I was in the backyard, halfway through repainting the shed, when I heard it. Music. Laughter. The shuffle of too many people trying to stay quiet. Then, surprise! I turned around, paintbrush in hand, and saw everyone. Miles, Aunt Linda, Grandma Louise in her signature sun hat, and even some of the crew from work. Colleen stood in the middle holding a cake with crooked candles and an even crookeder smile. "You're not the only one who can build something," she said. I laughed. Genuinely. "Did you all coordinate this?" Miles shrugged. "You never throw parties. Someone had to." The shed could wait. They'd brought burgers, music, even lawn games. I didn't realize how full the yard had gotten until I stood on the porch and looked out. These weren't just acquaintances. These were people who chose to show up. Late in the afternoon, Colleen pulled me aside. She handed me a small envelope. Her fingers trembled slightly. "It's not everything," she said, "but it's a start." Inside was a check. $5,500. I looked at her. "You serious?" She nodded. "That's what they told you to pay, right? For my tuition, I saved, worked doubles at the daycare, even sold that laptop." I blinked. "You sold it?" She smiled faintly. Didn't feel right keeping it. Figured I could get something secondhand and live like the rest of us. I didn't say anything for a second. Just slipped the check back into the envelope and held onto it like it was more than paper. Because it was. "It won't fix everything," she added quickly. "But I needed you to know I see it now. What they did, and I'm sorry." Before I could respond, Grandma raised her plastic cup from across the yard. "To Paul," she called out, loud and proud, for holding the line when no one else would. Everyone raised a glass. I felt my throat tighten. After dinner, Ethan, my neighbor and now good friend, clinked his beer bottle with mine. Not bad for a guy who used to crash on a couch. I laughed. Not bad at all. As the sun dipped behind the house I'd rebuilt with my own hands, I sat on the porch and watched my new world in motion. Not everyone who tears away from their family ends up alone. Some of us rebuild, brick by brick, piece by piece. And sometimes, if we're lucky, the people who matter find their way back. Not because they're expected to, but because they choose to.